Testing. One, two. right, guys. Thank you again for coming out tonight. We're very glad that you're here, that you braved the weather to get here. You didn't let that stop you from hearing the word of the Lord tonight. Linda, thank you so much for the meal, for everything you did. She's still back in the kitchen. Can we give Linda a quick hand? Linda and Bill and a whole bunch of people have worked so that they can feed us. My baby comes up to me and she says, "Hey, Dad, can I tell you something right now?" I love it. John, thank you again for being here tonight, for putting up with us and our antics, and I'm very grateful that you've been willing to invest the time that you've been willing to invest with us here personally. And I just want to say it's really fun at work to show colleagues this stuff and watch them all consistently go, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." You know, and it's one of those deals where the truth speaks to people. You know, it forces you to decide, and I'm very thankful that you come here willing to bring us deeper truth. So, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, John Costa.
Oh, am I on? Is it on? You are on. I'm on. All right. Okay. So we were talking about Antichrist types in the Old Testament. And there's a whole bunch of Christ types we covered probably on previous talks. And last night we covered a bunch of them. Cain was the first Antichrist type. He's the first human born on the planet, and he ends up being an Antichrist type. What does that tell you? I don't know what it tells you, but it tells you something. Who else was in there? Lamech, not Noah's father, but the seventh in line, the seventh from Cain. He was an Antichrist type. Nimrod was one. Pharaoh was one. Chedorlaomer. He's an... Who else? Solomon, he's on the line. He could go either way. Amalek, Goliath, and Saul. That's who we covered last night. We got about 3 or 4 more tonight. And if we finish early, we got some math stuff for Nate. Yeah, baby. Okay, we left off with Nebuchadnezzar is where we're going to start. Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Jews. Spell that, and I'll give you a new pair of shoes. You ever hear that? My neighbor, old man neighbor, growing up used to say that. Have you ever mentioned Nebuchadnezzar's name? He said that. Okay, next. It's not nexting? Really? Wow. Yeah. It wasn't a joke. Yeah, I never really understood the poem because it had to rhyme with that, and somehow it was. He said, "Spell that, and you get a new pair of shoes," and you're supposed to spell it T-H-A-T. Spell that, and you get a new pair of shoes. And he would fool his grandkids and the neighbor kids. And well, we can do shadow puppets until we begin. less. Yes. And what about the music? Can we kill that? Okay. And some of the slides are going to repeat because they're just important. And just to remind you of this thing. But if you remember, in Daniel, he talked about you are greatly beloved. Daniel was beloved. And in the New Testament, you had, and there was reclining on Jesus' bosom, one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. There are two beloveds in the Bible. In the Old Testament, Daniel, in the New Testament, John. And what do these two guys have in common? They were both shown what's coming in the end. And that's kind of cool. That you know, so you're going to be shown. You're beloved, I guess. All right, next. And this slide doesn't belong here. Next. And this slide actually should be further down. I don't know why it's not. But we're going to talk about Nebuchadnezzar. And remember, these were all the traits of Antichrist. Right? We talked about that on the first night we did Antichrist. He's going to have an image made. He answers to the dragon. There's a 42-month period where he rules. He has a beast's mind, because the beast is the Antichrist. He's called the king of Babylon. You're forced to worship him, take the mark. He persecutes Israel. He's the king of kings wannabe. Who wages war with him? There was this leopard bear. Both John and Daniel had these visions of these four things here: a leopard, bear, lion, and beast. Nebuchadnezzar represents the lion. He's a world dictator. He comes out of the sea. Remember, if you come out of the land is Israel. The sea is the nations. Okay, so Antichrist will be coming out of that, we think. And he has authority over every tribe, and his number is 666. These are all Antichrist pictures, and everyone that has a check mark can apply to Nebuchadnezzar. This slide should actually be at the end of the Nebuchadnezzar, but for some reason it's there. All right. Next. Is it not nexting? Oh, there we go. Okay, at that time the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, went up to Jerusalem, and the city came under siege. And Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came to the city while his servants were besieging it. And you know Nebuchadnezzar is the king of Babylon. What do we say about Babylon? The original, where Nimrod was from the plains of Shinar, that was Babel, right? And Babel became Babylon. That's where we get this, okay? What was I going to say about this? Anything here? No. Next. You know, Nebuchadnezzar, I don't even have a slide for this. This is just something that popped into my head just now. Nebuchadnezzar came and took the Jews to Babylon. And they were there for so many years. Daniel was one of them. He came as a teenager. And they're there for so long. And while they're there, Persia attacks Babylon and takes over. Nebuchadnezzar's dead at this point. His kid or grandkid, I think, is ruling at this point. And then Persia becomes the bigger empire. That's the bear on those four visions. You know, the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the beast. And then when they were taken to Persia, they were in Persia for so many years until it came to the point where Nehemiah went to the king, and the king says, "Nehemiah, why are you so sad?" And he said, "Because back home in Jerusalem, the city walls are down." And remember this? And so Nehemiah then, or Cyrus, I think is the king there at that point, Cyrus then allows Nehemiah and his buddies to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild their city. Now, not all of them went back. A lot of them, if you're in a place for 70 years, you got a house and a business, and do I want to go back to that ruinous city? And a lot of them didn't go back, and shame on them, right? But It turns out that they were actually out of the land for 70 years. I would guess to the day, because this is how God works. So, why did they get taken out of Jerusalem for 70 years? Does anyone know the answer to this? They didn't give the land its Sabbath rest. Remember, every 7 years, you're supposed to let the land rest. So I used to think, oh, well, they must have gone 490 years without letting the land rest. And then God said, okay, 490 divided by 7, 70 years. No, it's not 490. Why? Why wasn't it 490 they didn't keep? Here's the reason. Remember, every 7 years is a sabbatical year. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49. There's 7 of them. And what was year 50? It was the Jubilee year. And that was the Sabbath year also. So it was, you had 8 Sabbath years every 50. So then if you do the calculation, it's not 490, it's like 434 years they didn't keep the Sabbaths. But God was counting up every 7 and every 50th. That's how it came up to be 70. Because I used to teach, oh yeah, the Jews didn't keep their Sabbaths for 490 years. That was a lie. It wasn't it was 430 some years. And that's, the punishment was the 70 years the land had to rest. Okay. And this Babylon, Nimrod was the first king of Babylon. And in the end of days, in the book of Revelation, Babylon's coming back again, right? Here you have this verse from Revelation 17. And on her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of all harlots and abominations of the earth. There is a comma after mystery. It's not Mystery Babylon. Again, I used to hear it so much because people would just say it, and it just became Mystery Babylon. It's not Mystery Babylon. It's a mystery, Babylon the Great. Okay? By the way, I think next year, because I've got the talk almost done, there are mysteries in the Bible. There are 12 of them. Wouldn't that be fun to hear? Yeah, so I have them all listed and talks on all, and I just got to clean them up, and that'll be next year. We'll do the 12 mysteries, the mystery of godliness, the mystery of iniquity, the mystery of. There's 12 of them. Next. Okay, so Isaiah talks about that you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon and say how the oppressor has ceased and how fury has ceased. It's a prophecy in Isaiah that in the future they're going to be taunting this Antichrist, this king of Babylon. Anytime he talks about king of Babylon, that's Antichrist. Okay. And down here you have Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to the city, so he's the king of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar is king of Babylon, and Antichrist is king of Babylon. They have the same name. Okay? They're different people, but... Okay, next. So, Nimrod was the first king of Babylon, Antichrist will be the last king of Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar is the literal king of Babylon. Okay? Lots of reading. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, the height of which was 60 cubits, and its width 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain in the province of Babylon. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, to you the command is given, O people, nations, and men of every language, that at the moment you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the lyre, the trigon, the psaltery, and the bagpipe, and all kinds of music. You are to fall and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. Whoever doesn't fall down and worship shall immediately be cast in the midst of the furnace of blazing fire. Okay? So he's going to force worship upon people, just like Antichrist. So that's one of those check marks you saw on that, the big triangle. Next. Now, notice it says that the image was 60 cubits tall. Well, there you got a 6 there. It was 6 cubits wide. There's another 6. And whenever you hear the sound of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different musical instruments, so, and these just kind of all go together, that it gives you your 666 is tied in with Nebuchadnezzar. We saw the same thing last night with Goliath. Remember Goliath was 6 cubits tall. His shield weighed 600 shekels. And he had 6 pieces of armor that named. It's the same concept. You got a height, you got the weight, and you got 6 objects. Here you got a height, a width, and 6 objects, 6 musical instruments. So there is a 666 tied into Goliath. There's a 666 tied into Nebuchadnezzar. Okay. And with the Antichrist, it says he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast. Remember, this he right here is the false prophet. We talked about the other night, the first night, that God has a holy trinity, which we don't call the Trinity, we call the complex unity. You mention Trinity and Jews immediately cover their ears and Will, take your hands off. But Jews don't like to hear the word Trinity, and if you're ever going to win Jews, we can't call it Trinity, because they got a problem with that. But he is a complex unity. God is holy. You know what the word holy means? Holy means unique, one of a kind, nothing like it. That's the definition of holy. I always think it's some religious thing, you know? And it maybe is a religious thing, and that's the religious thing. He's one of a kind. He is separate and different from everything else. So God can be 3 in 1. That's his unique, that we can't comprehend or even picture. And the Satan, he likes to copy God. So if God has a holy Trinity, Father, Son, Spirit, and Satan's going to have his unholy, well, I don't care, we can call it Trinity for him. He's not a complex unity, he's an idiot. He's got Satan is the father position, Antichrist is the son position, and you have this false prophet who's going to pop up. The false prophet is kind of like the Holy Spirit. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean that. He's in the same position. He's a counterfeit. But what did the Holy Spirit do? The Holy Spirit never draws attention to himself. The Holy Spirit is always pointing to the Son. And that's what the false prophet's going to do. The false prophet points to the Antichrist. Okay? The best I can figure, and not only anybody has all the answers to this yet, because it's some complex stuff, but the Antichrist is going to be a political leader. The false prophet will be more of a religious leader. And the religious leader, false prophet, is going to tell everybody, hey, listen, I know I'm a religious leader. This guy is God. And people will, that's his credentials. I'm a religious leader. I know God when I see him, and this is it. That's kind of the picture there, okay? And they both get their power from Satan. Okay, so the false prophet deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given to perform in the presence of the beast. The beast is Antichrist. We put him in green. Telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and had come to life. So both Nebuchadnezzar had an image, Antichrist has an image. It was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So that's the same thing in Nebuchadnezzar's time. You don't worship the statue, you get thrown in the fiery furnace, right? So there's a parallel there. That's what we're going to be jumping back and forth, looking at Antichrist traits and Nebuchadnezzar traits. That's what we did yesterday, right? Then in Daniel 3, there are certain Jews, and these are the rat-faced squealers who are coming to the king and say, hey, king, you got some people in your kingdom who aren't bowing down. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the administration of the province in Babylon, namely Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have disregarded you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image which you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and anger, gave orders to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar responded and said, is it true that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Sometimes I'm going to leave out words because the less words I say, the longer I can talk, right? Without my ribs. They replied to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to give you an answer concerning this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace of blazing fire, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But even if he does not, let it be known, I love this. Even if you see what's happening here? You know, king, we're going to tell you right now, we're not going to bow down. And our God, he can save us from this. And you know what? If he doesn't save us, that's okay too. Can you imagine being on the same page as God, that you can say that? That's good stuff, right? If we could do that. Even if he does not, let it be known to you, O king, that we are not going to serve your God or worship the golden image that you have set up. He commanded certain valiant warriors who were in his army to tie up these three in order to cast them into the furnace of blazing fire. Okay, so let's look at the typology here. Nebuchadnezzar is the king of Babylon. Antichrist is the king of Babylon. Where do you got that? These three guys in blue, they are going to represent the Jews. Because they're Jews, aren't they? That was easy. And the fiery furnace represents the tribulation period. Make sense? Okay. Where's Daniel? Where's Daniel in all of this? Because why isn't he being thrown into the fiery furnace or even threatened to? And he's not bowing down. No, that's a different story. I think Daniel is going to represent those who got it, who get it today, and they're going to be raptured away. They're not going to be around to face the fiery furnace. I mean, Daniel's big in this story. There's only, 12 or 13 chapters in Daniel? I should know, shouldn't I? But there's not many chapters, and Daniel's a big player in there, and this is a pretty big story, and Daniel's nowhere to be seen. And we don't have any reason or any explanation as to where he is. He was sent off for something, but he's not in the story. He's not in the fiery furnace threatening. So I think that's a picture of those who get raptured away and aren't going to have to face the tribulation. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, let's see what happens to the Antichrist here. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. That's a picture right there. The dragon, he's going to persecute the woman. The woman we put in blue because that's Israel, right? And the woman who gave birth to the male child, that's Jesus. Who gives birth to the male child? Israel did. Okay? But the two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place, and she was nourished for a time and a half time from the presence of the serpent. So anyway, Antichrist is going to reveal his true self, At first he comes on the scene, peace, but there is no peace. But everyone's gonna be worshiping him, and it's wonderful. But his true intentions are gonna come out in the end. Okay, or not in the end, but at some point. So Nebuchadnezzar was furious with these three and commanded some of his strongest soldiers in the army to tie them up and throw them into the blazing fire. So we have Nebuchadnezzar persecuting Israel. We have Antichrist persecutes Israel. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. This is Antichrist. He's going to make war with the saints. By the way, these saints that he's making war with, that ain't us. This is tribulation period time. These are tribulation saints. We're not saints. If you're a believer in Jesus, you're the bride. You're the church. So that's a different thing from the saints that they talk about here. He said, and then they actually throw these guys in the furnace. Remember, they heat the furnace up 7 times hotter. 7 times. That's, I think, a parallel to the 7-year tribulation. 7. That's how he does. That's how he works. He uses these numbers like this. And so when they throw them in, the furnace was so hot. The furnace was so hot. Johnny Carson, you're supposed to say, how hot was it? That the people throwing these guys into the furnace, they were burned up. And he said, look, I see 4 men loosed and walking about in the midst of the fire without harm, and the appearance of the 4th is like the son of the gods. I think Yeshua's in there with them. I don't think. Yeshua's in there with them. Okay? And Yeshua does tell us in Matthew 28:20, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. He was with them, he's with us. Go to the next one. I never liked that slide anyway. It's a good verse, I'm sure, but okay. And she gave birth to a son. This is Revelation 12. This is the one that just happened, wasn't it? This the other day? Yeah. She gave birth to a son who was to rule all the nations with the rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God in his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God so that she would be nourished for 1,260 days. There's that 3.5 years. And it's again, God is taking care of the woman, taking care of Israel. And that's the same verse we just read. He is with us always. Okay? And remember, Nebuchadnezzar gets punished for this. And God makes him to go out in the grass, or out in the field, and he's crawling around on all 4s eating grass. Right? Nebuchadnezzar is given the mind of a beast. The beast is Antichrist, and he's got a mind of a beast. So there's that parallel. We're just trying to pick up parallels between these Old Testament guys and Antichrist. Okay? And I don't think we're stretching anything yet, have we? These are all they kind of fit. Okay. And obviously the beast has the mind of a beast. This one we talked about. Do I have to read the whole thing? I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet was like a bear. His mouth was like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power and his throne and great authority. But there were these 4 things here. The lion, that's the one that represents Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? So Nebuchadnezzar does fit nicely into this. Into these visions. Now we have this, the prince who is to come. This is the next guy after Nebuchadnezzar. You know what? I'm going to take this off for a moment. I'm going to take this off for a moment. How hot is it? It's so hot I have to take my shirt off. Are we still good there? Can you hear it? Yeah. Okay. This is the prince who is to come. We find this in Daniel 9. I think this is the greatest prophecy in the Bible. So that's how big this one is. It gets a little complicated, and this is going to be a 15-minute spiel. So stay with me. Who did that? I love it. Verse 24. It says 70 weeks, and there's an asterisk on weeks. 70 weeks have been decreed for your people in your holy city to do 7 things. To finish the transgression, to make an end to sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and the prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So 7 things are going to happen in 70 weeks. Right? Okay. Next. Now, the word that we translate in English as weeks is not weeks. It says 70 Shabuah. Or actually in Hebrew, Shabuim. Shabuim, because it's plural, the I-am ending. Okay? A Shabuah is a period of 7 something. 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 years. Those are all a Shabuah. We, in America, we deal in decades, right? A decade is 10. I say 3 decades, you know that's 30 years. In Israel, if you say 3 Shabuah, that's 21 years. Make sense? Because a Shabuah is a period of 7 years. That's the original Hebrew, Shabuah, not weeks. So, if you have 70 Shabuah, or Shabuim, if each Shabuah is 7 years, that's a period of 490 years. So, in Daniel's prophecy here, it's saying, in 490 years, all of these things are going to happen. Got it? Daniel... His period is like, I don't even know when Daniel was, 300 and some BC. That's Daniel, okay? So, if you go from Daniel's period and you jump ahead 490 years from the time this prophecy was written, did all of these 7 things occur? Well, let's see. Finish transgression. Do people still transgress? Are people still sinning? Yeah, they're still sinning. To make an end of sin? No, we haven't come to that. To make atonement for iniquity. Now that one, number 3, you could argue, not argue, you can state emphatically that one has occurred. Because Yeshua came down and he became our blood sacrifice. He made atonement for iniquity, right? So that one for sure has happened, but the other one's not, okay? So we got to make this work because there can't be any mistakes in the Bible. He says in 490 years, all of these things are going to happen, but I only see one of them happening in the next 490 years from the time Daniel wrote all this. You see the problem? Okay. But it's going to fit. It's going to fit. I'm telling you, this is the best prophecy in the Bible, maybe. Here's the next verse. There's 4 verses we're going to cover on this. You just had the first one there. So you are to know and discern. We have a from and an until. From the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 Shabuim and 62 Shabuim, and it will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress. Okay. Oh my, there's a lot here. From the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Remember I told you the Jews were taken by Nebuchadnezzar, and they're in Babylon. And while they're there, and Daniel is one of them. He comes as a teenager. And Daniel rises up to number 2, or really high up in the Babylonian court. Then the Persians come and conquer all them, and Daniel's now taken to Persia. And Daniel becomes an old man in Persia. And then Daniel makes this prophecy. So they're in Persia, and remember I told you Nehemiah, he comes before the king, and he's all sad, and he says, Nehemiah, why are you so sad? And he said, because and this is much later now, that Daniel's dead after this happens. Nehemiah says, well, Jerusalem is in ruins, my town. And the king says, all right, I'm going to make a decree. Go and restore and build your... Oh, that wasn't actually a... I know, I'm sorry. Go back one. I struck the rock. I was supposed to speak to the rock, and I struck it. I'm sorry. That's a good point. I shouldn't have done that one. So King Cyrus says, okay, I'm going to issue a decree. That was the decree. That's where that came from. Here's a decree. You may go and restore and rebuild Jerusalem. That's the decree. Daniel wrote this prophecy long before this decree ever occurred. Okay? But Daniel said, this is such an amazing prophecy, from some future date when somebody issues a decree to go rebuild, start the clock right then. From that moment until Messiah, it's going to be 7 Shabuah. How many years is that? 49. Excellent. Karen, give you credit. And 62 Shabuah. Deer in the headlights. A lot. 434, I think. Okay. Now, why did God break it into 2? He said it's going to be 7 Shabuah and 62 Shabuah. Why didn't he just say 69 Shabuah? I don't know. I don't know. It's an odd thing. Oh, you know what? He loves the number 7, and he throws 7s in everywhere. Maybe he just wanted one of his 7s in there. You know? I don't know why, but that's how he broke it up. Remember, we're trying to deal with 70. We have to deal with 70 of these Shabuahs. We're about to deal with 69 of them here. 7 and 62. Whenever you see 7 and 62, just lump them together as 69. Got it? Don't let it trip you up. Why did he break it into 7 and 62? Just know it's 69. So, from the issuing of this, King Cyrus orders Jerusalem be rebuilt until the Messiah. Wow. You know what this is prophesying? This is prophesying Yeshua's arrival. That's huge. Okay? There's going to be 69 Shabuahs. Okay. 7 Shabuah is 49 years. 62 Shabuah is 434 years. And together that's 483 years. That's an amazing prophecy. Daniel is saying in 483 years, Messiah is going to show up. And not 483 from today, 483 from sometime in the future when somebody, we don't even know who, is going to issue a decree to go rebuild Jerusalem. That's a pretty bold prophecy, isn't it? Okay, so you understand the groundwork, how this is supposed to fit. Now, 69 Shabuas, each one is 7 years. So what he's actually saying is, and each year is 360 days. We have to use biblical Hebrew calendars in everything in the Bible. Don't ever use Gregorian calendar or Julian or whatever those other calendars are. So what Daniel is actually saying is, in 173,880 days, Messiah is going to come. Starting when? Sometime in the future when somebody makes a decree to go rebuild the city. That's pretty cool. Remember, whenever, I don't know if I have a slide for this, and if I do, we can jump past it quick. But remember, whenever Jesus is born and the Magi show up from the east. Who were the Magi? Well, they're from the east. Here's Jerusalem. This is east. Here's Iraq. That's Babylon. Here's Persia. That's where Daniel is when he makes the prophecy. Daniel, if you remember, he shows up as a teenager, and they recognize his genius, and they put him with all the wise men of Babylon. And then when Persia took over, Daniel gets put in with the Persian wise men. And so if Daniel's making this prophecy, and he's in a room full of wise men at their wise men meeting, and he says, hey guys, look, I got this prophecy. In 173,880 days, the Messiah is going to show up. And somebody wrote that down. And Daniel died, and life went on. And sometime in the future, Cyrus makes the decree. And those wise men are still having wise men meetings, and they're saying, hey, remember Daniel, that guy? Or he has it written down here that 173,880 days from today, the Messiah is going to show up. That's how the Magi is wise men, that's how they knew, hey, let's go to Jerusalem, because Daniel's prophecy should be happening. Now, granted, there was also a big star in the sky, but they had to know it's getting close, you know? And I think once they started, then they see the star, but it was a confirmation. Remember, on the testimony of 2 or 3, a matter is established. So they see a big star, and they have Daniel's writings, and they're counting, and they know we should be going because this Messiah is going to be coming. Make sense?
John, quick question. Could the Magi have seen the star developing small and been counting as to when it got larger before they took the journey?
No idea. But it could be, yeah.
There's a lot of stars we see which are in motion, but as we're coming around the sun on our orbit, they seem to get closer. They're not really, but...
Right. Yeah, or, I don't know if this was a natural star that's out there, or did God put a special star? It could be either one, Is it just a natural star that was really big at the time, or did God have a special star for this very special occasion? And remember, Jesus was born on Sukkot, which was 4 days ago, the first day. This is not December 25th nonsense. Yes, and I'll show it to you for $3. Next. Ask and ye shall receive. I love this group. You're my second favorite church that I talk to. Huh? What? No, second. Well, all the other churches are tied for first. Okay, let's look at that verse and we'll tear it apart. Up, go back. Did I stomp? I didn't stomp, did I? Go back. Oh, he's getting even for my joke. Okay, here's that verse again. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and build Jerusalem. Well, that did happen by Artaxerxes Longimanus. It talks about it in Nehemiah 2. It happened on March 14th, 445 BC. There's all kind of records. Go to Istanbul in the museums and go throughout the Middle East in the museums. And there's a clay cylinder. I think it's in the Istanbul Museum. And on that clay cylinder is that cylinder where Cyrus wrote this decree. Go and rebuild your... And they know when it is. It's March 14th, 445 BC. Joe. Yes, I think it is. Yes. Artaxerxes Longimanus. Until Messiah the Prince, in this date, how do you get that date? Well, I'll show you later, but let's just assume it's April 6, 32 AD. Now remember, it says until Messiah the Prince. When do you start counting? When is Messiah the Prince? Is it the day he was born? Is that when you count? Messiah the Prince. Or is it the day that he did his triumphal entry? Or is it the day he started his ministry? Was it the day he's crucified? You understand? It doesn't just say until Messiah the Prince, until the Messiah the Prince what? Is born? Triumphal entry? Dies? We don't know. Okay? But we'll put his triumphal entry date as that. We know it's somewhere around 32, 33, right? Jesus was born, he had 33 years and a half. So from this date to this date, there will be 7 Shabuah and 62 Shabuah, which is 173,880 days, right? It will be built again with plasma mode, even in times of distress. So, if we go from this date, March 14th, to this date, there's from 445 BC to 32 AD, that's 476 years. And we're going to be using our years because this is the date on our calendar. Okay? 445 BC. That's 476 years times that. That's 173,740 days. But that goes from March 14th to March 14th. Then you have to count from March 14th to April 6th. That's an extra 24 days. And you have to allow for leap years. Because the Jewish calendar doesn't have that, but ours does. And what we're doing is we're converting from our calendar back to their calendar, the Jewish calendar. So from this day to this day is this many days, plus the extras to get to April 6th. And April 6th, by the way, that does put it around Passover, doesn't it? Which is triumphal entry kind of stuff. That's the week before, right, or so. Plus the leap years, it comes out to 173,880 days. Well, that's how many days 69 Shabuah are. So from this day to this day is that many, and 69 Shabuah is also this. So that's how they knew. It's pinpointing when Jesus is coming. That's a pretty amazing prophecy to the day. I love that. Okay? Now let's read the next verse. Then, after 62 Shabuim, remember, it was 7 Shabuah, and then 69, 7 Shabuah, then 62 Shabuah. So it's 69 Shabuah total. So when it says then after 62 Shabuim, that really means after all 69, right? Because the 7's already passed. And then the 62, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. And then what happened? Jesus is crucified after this. So that fits very nicely. And now we're getting into Antichrist stuff. Watch this. And the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The city is Jerusalem. The sanctuary is the temple. Who destroyed Jerusalem and the temple? The Romans. We know that, right? They did it in 70 A.D. Titus and his army. So the people, we know, the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, we know who these people are. They're the Romans. So the prince who is to come, this is not the same as the Messiah, the prince, what it talked about 2 verses ago. He was the good prince, the Messiah, the prince. This is the prince who is to come. This is one of the bad names for Antichrist. So it's saying the people of the prince who is to come. The prince who is to come must be of these people. Do you ever hear people tell you that the Antichrist is coming from the revived Roman Empire? This is why they say that. Because this verse is telling you the prince who is to come, he's of the people who will destroy the city and sanctuary. And we know, looking back, who's destroyed the city and the sanctuary. It was the Romans. In its end will come in a flood, even to the end there will be war, desolations are determined. Next. Oh, we've already covered this one, right? Yep. Okay, next. That's the same verse. What does it say here? The prince who is to come, that's Antichrist, is of the people who destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. Antichrist comes from revived Roman Empire. And if you remember on those visions that we saw, remember Daniel had visions where he looked ahead and he saw a lion. That's Babylonian Empire. The world. These are the world empires. He saw a lion, Babylon, and a bear, that was Persia, and a leopard, that was Greece, and then a beast. And what were the empire chain? Babylon was overtaken by Persia, Persia was overtaken by Greece, and Greece was overtaken by Rome. So those are the ones there. Lion is Babylon, Persia is bear, leopard is Greece, the beast is the Roman Empire. In John's vision, John looks back and he talks about a beast and a leopard and a bear and a lion. He names them backwards because he's in the future looking back. The beast is the first one he names because he's there in it, and he looks back and sees the previous 3. Does that make sense? Okay. Next. And we're talking about the prince who is to come, who's Antichrist, will make a firm covenant with the many for one Shabuah. Now remember, how this whole thing started. It said 70 Shabuah are going to be set aside for all these 7 things to occur. That's 70 Shabuah. So far, we've dealt with 69 Shabuah, right? So we still have 1 Shabuah left that we haven't dealt with, okay? There's nothing that says that this can't be. There's from the decree until Messiah, that's 69 Shabuah. Then there's going to be that 70th Shabuah, but it doesn't have to start immediately after the 69th one ended. In fact, once the 69 Shabuah are done, there's going to be a gap between that 69th Shabuah, Messiah showing up, and the 70th Shabuah, which is going to take place in the future. That last Shabuah, that last 7 years, that's the tribulation period, is that last 7 years, and there's a gap between the 69th Shabuah and the 70th Shabuah. Does that make sense? Do you guys know all this already? Should we just jump ahead? Because some people know it and some people don't. It's complicated stuff, but you guys know a lot of stuff, so I don't know if I'm just preaching to the choir here. Well, that tells me he ain't in the choir. Yes.
Quick question for you. I hear some people say that it will be Rome where the Antichrist will come from. Yet others say it will be out of Islam.
I do not think it will be out of Islam. And okay, that's an excellent question. Maybe you're first. No. Here, listen to this. It's good. It's not going to be out of Islam, and he is coming out of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, if you remember, it stretched all the way up to Scotland, Hadrian's Wall up in Scotland. It was all of Europe. It went all the way over to the Ukraine. It was all of North Africa. It was most of the Middle East, all the way over to India. Do you understand how big the Roman Empire was? So when it says the Antichrist, when we know he's coming out of the Roman Empire, or the revived Roman Empire, he could be British. He could be German. He could be Ukrainian. He could be North African. He could be Syrian, which that's one of the names of Antichrist, is the Assyrian. You understand? So, coming out of the Roman Empire gives a big section for him to come out of. Now, so then he could be Muslim. But he can't be Muslim. And here's why. Because, hold on one second, Joe, but he can't be Muslim because, why can't he be Muslim? Let me tell you. I just want you to have to think about it. Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, he's going to be Jewish, but he can't be Muslim because a Muslim worships Allah, and Allah is not a man, and Allah does not have a son. So there's no way a human being can come on the scene and say, I'm God, and all the Muslims would bow down to him, because they know Allah is not a man. Make sense? So there's no way he can be Muslim. And at the Battle of Gog and Magog, okay, that's going to happen any minute. The Gog and Magog battle is these groups that are going to come against Israel. Here's Israel. It's going to be Iran, Turkey, Put, Put is Libya, North Africa, not including Egypt. And Cush. Cush is Sudan, Ethiopia area. Those four, with Russia behind them, they're all going to attack Israel. And it could be just prior to the rapture. It could be just after the rapture. It's going to be sometime close to the rapture. Nobody knows for sure which one comes first. But they're looking for their Mahdi, yes. Yeah. No. He's not God, though. That's the thing. Their Mahdi is not God, which we believe Jesus is. But anyway, at the Gog and Magog, when all these people attack Israel, it says that 5/6 of them are going to get wiped out. So I think that's the fate of Islam. When 5/6 of those attacking nations, those who remain Muslim, are going to say, I'm done with that. I'm done with that guy. They're not going to be Muslim anymore because they can't worship a man, and they just saw 5/6 of those get decimated or sextimated. Right? It's 1/6, not, or 5/6. I don't know. Okay, Joe, you had a question? Or you forgot what it was?
I'm going to go past that question because, well, I'll ask you. Do you think it's going to come from the Eastern Roman Empire that will the Messiah?
I don't know. That's if you're talking Eastern Roman Empire saying Muslim, probably not. Because all that Muslim Islamic stuff, I think, will get wiped out in Gog and Magog.
I think a lot of it will get wiped out because you probably know the second chapter 16 is not in our scripture anymore. It's in the 16:11. Took it out. Woe for you, Babylon, and Asia, Iraq, Iran, those in Egypt, and Syria, put on sackcloth and haircloth, and bewail your sons for your destruction is at hand. It is the beginning of sorrow. Daniel 7:9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Check that out sometime if you get a chance and you don't know about it.
Okay. All right. Does this make sense so far? Is it all fitting? Okay. Is there anything else I need to read on this? Okay, let's go to the next one. So this Antichrist, he's going to make a firm covenant with many. Who is many? That's the Jews. Okay? So he's going to make some kind of a peace treaty with the Jews for one Shabuah. How long is that? 7 years. That's Daniel's 70th Shabuah. It hasn't occurred yet. Once that 70th Shabuah is finished, once the tribulation period is over, then all of those things, those 7 things that were supposed to happen, will have happened. Because it's all, we're beginning the 1,000-year reign of Christ. Right? There's just going to be a gap between the 69th and the 70th. Oh, we haven't read this one yet. And he will make a firm covenant with many for one Shabuah. You know what? If we ever get through this verse. How is he going to do that? I think what will happen is, everyone knows, don't mess with Israel, right? Israel, I told you the T-shirt, right? Attack us, we need the land. That's what they said. The T-shirts in Israel you can buy. There's another one that says, I love this one. It says, don't worry, America, Israel's got your back. That's a good one, too. Go to Jerusalem and just read the T-shirts. They're hilarious and prophetic. Amen. So how will the Jews ever fall for this guy? What's he going to offer them that they would sign a 7-year peace treaty with the devil. I think what will happen is, does Israel have nuclear weapons? Do you know for sure? No, you don't. How do you know? Oh. Well. No. Well, I think they have them. I'm almost positive they have them. I don't know, no. Yeah, you told me. That's how I know. Okay, I gotta get back on track. Hold on. Israel has a policy. They have two policies that are really cool. One, their stance on nuclear weapons is they are, it's called nuclear, I'm not going to be like George Bush. What is it? I'd be laughed at. Nuclear ambiguity. Israel's stance is, we're not saying. We're not telling you yes. We're not telling you no. We're not saying. And Israel doesn't come out and say to anybody, except her, whether they have nuclear weapons. Their second thing that Israel has is called the Samson option. And they do broadcast this. And it is, we're not going to tell you whether we have what we have, whether we have them or we don't have them, but remember the Samson story. If we go, we're taking you with us. Because if something's coming to us, before it hits, we're going to push the button and we're going to send everything back at you that we have. That's a nice deterrent, right? And it works so far. So, how are they going to, who's going to make a covenant with these people, and how is Israel going to agree to make this covenant? I think what's going to happen, you know what Israel wants now more than anything? They want to be left alone, but they also want their temple. When they first came back in the land, most of them didn't care. And then for the first, 20, 30, 40 years, nobody was really caring about the temple. But there's like a groundswell of interest in it. And the Jews are living there, and they're so happy that they're back in their land. And the Muslims who are up on top are almost, the Jews just want to be left alone. But the Muslims are pushing buttons, pushing buttons, pushing buttons, pushing buttons. And the Jews are like, listen, we're allowing you to go up there, and you can worship in your Dome of the Rock, or you can do it. Just leave us alone. And they're not leaving them alone. And it's making the Jews really upset. And they're going, you know what? We've been good and neighborly. Israel took the Temple Mount in 1967. And the first thing they did is they gave it to the Muslims and said, here, it's yours. You may worship as freely as you want. And the Muslims have taken that and just punched Israel right back in the nose. And the Jews are like, they've had it up to here. You know what? It's our land. It's our Temple Mount. And we get no thanks at all from these people. And it's causing a groundswell that the Jews are now saying, what about our temple? And it's to the point where they want their temple. Well, you can't knock down the Dome of the Rock, right? That would just cause World War III. And there's talk about putting it next to it, or it has to be in the right spot and all that. But anyway, I think there's going to be some kind of a trade-off where the world's going to say, listen, give up your nukes, and we'll give you the temple. We'll give you your temple. That is just my conjecture of how it might go. It would be stupid, but it's... You don't think it's going to happen? Oh, there's something's going to happen that
What's going to happen
huh?
what's going to happen is Israel's going to push that button. They're going to push the button and hit somebody.
And-
Then the world's going to come down on them.
Or maybe Gog and Magog will change the world's mind, right? Once Gog and Magog happens and they see everybody, all these invading countries, 5, 6 of them get wiped out, something's going to happen that the Antichrist is going to sign this covenant with Israel. A firm covenant with many for one Shabuim for 7 years. But in the middle of that Shabuah, that's 3.5 years in. And what's 3.5 years? That's 42 months. That's 1,260 days. That's time, times, and half a time. You see, it's the same period named over and over and over again, different ways. It's everything, he put in everything but nanoseconds. In the middle of the Shabuah, in 3.5 years in, he will put a stop to the sacrifice and grain offering. Oh, you know what that means? Where do you do the sacrifice and grain offering? At the temple. It's the only place you can do it. So this tells me there's going to be a temple. Okay? This is the third temple. There will be a fourth temple when Yeshua comes and the New Jerusalem comes down and all that. But this is the third temple they're talking about here. He's going to put a stop to the sacrifice and grain offering. I can see that happening. I can see PETA with their signs. You know, oh, they're sacrificing baby lambs. It's torturous punishment to these animals. You know, that's the whole world will go scream. And it don't matter if the Jews were sacrificing a leaf, the world would start screaming. You know, just because that's just what the world does against Jews. But those who are watching, let me tell you, this congregation isn't that. This congregation and me, we love the Jews. If you're watching, God bless. So he's going to put a stop to the sacrifice and grain offerings, and on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate. Look at this. Desolate, abominations. Abomination, desolate. Keep those two words in mind. Even until a complete destruction, one that is decreed is poured out on the one who makes desolate. Okay, next. Jesus talks about this. Jesus in Matthew 24, he says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation. That's what we just read in the last verse, those two words, abomination and desolate, one who makes desolate. Which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet. Jesus even tells you where to find it. It's in Daniel the prophet. Standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. So the holy place, that's the temple. So you're going to have this abomination, desolation. That's Antichrist. He's going to be standing in the temple. And when you see that happen, run to the hills. Whoever's on the all these things. I should read it for those watching at home, the Jews, so you know what to do. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. Whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get the things that are in his house. Whoever is in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. The point is, Jesus is confirming all of this to be true. Right? One more thing here I thought I was going to say. Can't think of it. Let's go next. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. But pray that your flight will not be in the winter or on the Sabbath or on a Sabbath. I think that tells you something. That tells you that this is not going to happen in the winter. So you want to figure out when is the rapture or when is anything going to happen. It's not going to happen in the winter. And it's probably not going to happen on a Sabbath day. I think that's the hint that's given you there. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will. Unless those days have been cut short, no life would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. So he even talks about this great tribulation. The Great Tribulation, by the way, is the second 3.5 years, that 42 months, 1,260 days. Okay? So, the 69th Shabuah, after this, is when Messiah shows up. The 70th Shabuah is that last 7 years. And next, and all these things here are going to happen after the 70th. Right? Next. What happened between the 69th Shabuah and the 70th Shabuah? The book of Acts describes the first 30 years after the 69th Shabuah. And then you have the 7 letters to the churches of Revelation. Remember we did a talk on that a few years back. And each letter to the church of Ephesus was the first one, and that went up to about 100 AD, and then it was Smyrna, and that went up to 323 AD, and then the Pergamos went up to, I don't know, until the Catholic Church took over. Thyatira was the Catholic Church. The Protestant Reformation was Sardis. Philadelphia was the missionary church, and Laodicea is the end times church. Those 7 letters covered the next 2,000 years of church history. The best teaching I've ever done, according to him. And it's on video. It's about 3.5 hours long, and you can go to YouTube and type in John Kostick and watch. It's in 2 parts. Oh, you can watch that Tuesday night. Okay. Next. There was a blank slide in there I had. Yes. Okay, next. Now this is kind of cool. You know, to show you that Antichrist is coming from the Roman Empire, right? You know, we talked about gematria. We've had lessons here with gematria. You know, there's 22 Hebrew letters, and each Hebrew letter has a number associated with it. And it's odd how it works. If I don't need to explain the gematria, but just every Hebrew letter has a number associated with it. So does Greek. Every Greek letter has a number associated with it. And so does the Roman alphabet. But in the Roman alphabet, it's not every letter. There's only 7 of their letters have numbers associated with it. I is 1, V is 5, X is 10, L is 50, C is 100, D is 500, and M is 1,000 for mille, right? You know your 7. Okay. Look at the first 6 Roman numerals. What's this? 600, 650, 660, 665. Next. It adds up to 666. The first 6 Roman numerals. That's kind of a hint that he's coming from the Roman Empire. Which in Hebrew it wouldn't be vav, 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 but it really kind of is. You ever see that, what's that drink that they drink, the Monster drink? And has a big M on the front? But that M, if you notice, the three strokes on the M, they don't touch each other. It's like that. And it's kind of creepy. And if you ever read the back of one of those cans, I picked up one, not in a store, like on this trash. And I picked it up and I turned it around. And here's literally what it said. Not literally, because I'm paraphrasing. But it said like, okay, so I was sitting by the pool in Vegas trying to decide whether to split these 10s or take a hit And I was watching the flesh parade at the pool in Vegas, and I thought, man, I wish there was a drink where it would keep me awake so I could do this longer. That's kind of the gist of what it said on the back of the can. So that's why I went ahead and invented this monster drink, so I can stay up longer and hang out at the pool in Vegas and watch the flesh parade and gamble. That's what it literally says on the back of the can, and on the front there's fire and vuv, vuv, vuv.
I couldn't help but notice something here. What letter does the above look like? What letter?
M.
That's the seventh letter of the Roman numeral that has
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's that seventh one. Okay, next. Now, I don't know if this ties in or not, but you all know who the Pope is, right? Pope, what is he now? Francis? Okay. Pope Francis, or any Pope for that matter. The Pope is referred to as the vicar, of Christ. Vicar comes from vicarious. Vicarious means you're not doing it yourself, you're in place of. You know, some people say, oh, John, I travel vicariously with you. We look at your pictures when you come back from your trip. I put them on Facebook, and they're not traveling with me, they're traveling vicariously in place of, just by watching the pictures. So, the vicar of Christ, or the vicar of the Son of God, the Pope's title is Vicarius Filii Dei. Dei. I don't know how to pronounce it. How is it? Okay, Vicarius Filii Dei. That's the title of the Pope. He has it like on his mitre. You know, those letters are written there in the Roman thing. Okay. And some of those letters up here are Roman numerals also. Go to the next one. Yeah, see, here's the V. Vicarious that's a 5. Here's an I, that's 1. Here's a C, is 100. 1, that's 5. What's this? Here's a 1 here. There's a 50 for the L. We got 2 more 1s. There's 500 for the D, and a 1 for the I. Next. You add all those up? Well, that's kind of odd too, isn't it? Ain't it? So I'm wondering if somehow there's some kind of a tie-in there, because you have this Antichrist and you're going to have a false prophet. The false prophet, I told you, is going to be a religious leader who's pointing at the Antichrist religious leader and saying, he's God. And I have the authority. I'm a religious leader. And if you read Revelation 17, it talks about, it talks about Rome. I mean, it describes it. They're wearing scarlet and purple. They're on 7 hills. It's Mystery Babylon, the harlot, the mother of all harlots. And it's on every, what does it talk about? It's like in every land. The Catholic Church is everywhere. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe there's some kind of tie-in with false prophet, one world religion. They already have the structure set up, right? There are churches everywhere. My friends watching, if you're in the Catholic Church, run from it. It's evil. Are we allowed to say that? I just did. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Joe? Yeah, you know what? I don't do stuff like that. If it's not in the Bible, I mean, I can't be guessing who it is, and Pope Francis, or maybe I spelled it wrong, or I'm not trying to guess who it is. I don't care who it is. I hope to not be here. I understand people are looking all the time for things like tie-ins, but I don't read anything that's not in the Bible. I don't read it. And what she asked was, if you go to Rome, they have a thing called the Arch of Titus. It's a huge arch, and it has all kind of carvings on it, very in bas relief, you know, just beautiful, but it's old. It's 2,000 years old. They built it when Titus returned from sacking Jerusalem. And one of the images that are carved in there is a whole bunch of soldiers or slaves, I'm not sure what they are, but they're carrying a giant litter, and on top of that litter is a giant menorah. They're celebrating their victory, and they're bringing back that menorah from Jerusalem. I believe the original menorah is probably in the basement of the Vatican. There's no reason why you would make a giant arch and it still be there today in Rome. I got pictures of it someplace. And you have him carrying a giant menorah back. You know? And maybe that could be part of the thing with the 7-year covenant. Remember, he's going to make a covenant with the many. Maybe it's, hey, you sign a covenant with us, we got a menorah in our basement we'll give you. That could, none of this is set in stone of my predictions is what it's going to be, but these are things that it could be, that it makes it kind of fit. Okay. You have this guy mentioned. This is we're moving on from Nebuchadnezzar and the prince who is to come. Adoniacum. I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay. But anyway, it's a bit shaky, but look at this one. Next. He's given all the numbers of all these people, the number of men and the people of Israel. The sons of Parosh was this many. The sons of this guy was this many. On and on. Verse 13, the sons of Adoniacum was 666. That was odd that he had 666. And his name means my Lord has risen. Is that an Antichrist thing? I don't know. There aren't many times that 666 is mentioned in the Bible. Solomon was given 666 talents of gold every year. The Antichrist number is 666. And this guy, the sons of him were 666. Those are the 3 times 666 show up in the Bible. So I don't know how that applies, if anything, but I threw it in there just for kind of some filler. Not really. Next and next. One more. Haman. Ooh. I'm imagining hearing it. Yeah, the Jews, when they reenact the Esther story every year, whenever you hear they mention Esther's name, yeah, and they mention Haman's name, ooh, they drowned it out so it can't be. And they actually do this. It's cool. Okay. Next. Now, if you remember, Haman was the bad guy who told the king Xerxes, Ahasuerus, I think, or something. But anyway, he was the one who had the plot to kill all the Jews because Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. So he goes to the king and says, King, you got these people in your kingdom who are troublemakers, and I'll give you 10,000 pieces of silver if you let me get rid of them. And the king said, keep your silver. Do what you want. I trust you. And so this Haman, he cast lots, and he picked a day where he was going to destroy all the Jews. And the king signed it, and they sent it out over the 127 provinces, and on this day, the Jews are going to be wiped out. The king didn't realize who he was having wiped out, that they were Jews, nor did he know that his wife Esther was a Jew. Okay, and this Mordecai has to save the day, and Esther helps a lot too. To get together, they save the Jews. We're not doing the Esther story tonight, obviously, but Haman does kind of meet his end at the end. He has a gallows built because he's going to hang Mordecai, and then it somehow gets twisted, and Haman gets found out, and so they're going to hang Haman, and Haman had 10 sons. So Haman was a bad guy who wanted to destroy the Jews. That's a very Antichrist trait, destroy the Jews, right? So Haman is an Antichrist type. And remember yesterday we talked about Saul and Shimei. And if a few of you weren't here last night, I'll catch you up real quick. We're trying to do this in 2 minutes. Saul was supposed to kill all the Amalekites. Remember this? And he ended up, and all their animals and everything. And Samuel was the one who told him to do it, or God, but anyway, and when Samuel showed up, he said, what's that noise I hear, all these animals? And Saul said, oh yes, well, we attacked the Amalekites, and we took their animals for sacrifice. Yeah, that's it. We would sacrifice their animals to the Lord. And Saul said, no, you were supposed to kill all their animals. And who's this guy over here? Because Saul also let Agag, the king of the Amalekites, live. And Saul, or Samuel, he took his sword and cut Agag to pieces. So Saul disobeyed and let Agag live. Let's jump ahead. David, King David is walking along with his mighty men, and up on a hill there was this guy named Shimei. And Shimei was yelling, David, you no good rat fink. And he's throwing dirt and throwing stones at David. And David's mighty man said, hey, let me go up and take that dog's head off. And David said, no, you know what? If he's cursing me, maybe he's supposed to curse me. So let's just let him be. David showed this man Shimei mercy. Those two incidences way back here, and now we're going to jump way up to the Esther story, and it says Haman's the enemy, Haman the Agagite. Haman is an Agagite. That means he's a descendant of Agag, the one Saul was supposed to kill. If Saul would have killed Agag, there would have never been a Haman. Saul's disobedience led to Haman, right? And when it talks about Mordecai, the one who saves the day in the Esther story, Mordecai was the son of Kish, was the son of Yair, was the son of Shimei. Shimei was the one that was throwing rocks at David, and you want me to go kill this guy? And David said, no, if he's supposed to curse me, let him curse. If David said, yeah, go take his head off, there would have been no Shimei, there would have been no Kish, there would have been no Yair, there would have been no Mordecai. You see how Saul's disobedience led to Haman, David's mercy led to Mordecai. That one's worth $3. I'm not gonna ask for it, but it's worth it. I know you do, because I told you yesterday and last year. I worked that one in almost every year. It's just so cool. Okay. How are we doing on time? 7:40. Now, watch this. That's just kind of a general, you got the idea, right? Haman's wanting to kill all the Jews. Mordecai's going to be the one who saves them. And Haman's found out, and the king is furious, and he's going to wipe out Haman and his 10 sons. Okay, so it says, for Haman, the son of whatever, the Agagite, the adversary of all the Jews, had schemed against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast a pur, or a lot, dice, to disturb them and destroy them. So he had picked a day by casting dice or whatever, what day we're going to kill all the Jews. Next. Okay. At the citadel in Susa, the Jews killed, and the king gave an order that the Jews were allowed to fight back. And so there was only one day that you killed the Jews, and that day the Jews were allowed to fight back. And it says, at the citadel in Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. So the Jews were fighting back, they killed 500 who were trying to attack them. And this guy, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These 10 guys at the citadel in Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman, the Jews' enemy, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. So you see what's happened? The enemy attacked the Jews killed 500 of them, and they killed Haman's 10 sons. You see that? Watch this. This is the page from the Tanakh. How it looks. You know, have you ever seen the Jewish scroll that you're actually reading? This is what it looks like. It's all block justified, right? The writing starts here, goes all the way across, and then the next line, all the way across. And we'll just use these two lines, right? It's a nice square. That's how Hebrew scrolls are written. It's justified straight on both ends. But there's one page of the Tanakh that isn't that. And this is it. That one page of the Tanakh has just this on it, not counting the heading. And what it says is, and, because the previous verse was, there were, in the citadel of Susa, the Jews killed 500 people. Turn the page. And this guy, and this guy, and this guy. You see what it does? And this guy. That's all that's on that page. Just the 10 names of the 10 sons of Haman, and the word and 10 times. That's interesting. That's all that's on that page. And I don't know if you can tell. Let's go to the next slide and see if it's any better. That doesn't do much different. Go to the next one. There we go. I put all the ands, and Aleph Tav, this guy, and Aleph Tav, this guy, and Aleph Tav, that guy. Do you notice? Right here, there's a Tav. And it's green. It's not green in the Tanakh. I made it green so you can see it. But it's smaller than all the other letters in that name. That's how it is in the Hebrew. For some reason, that guy has a little tav. And down here in Parmashta, he has a little shin. I underlined it too. It's not underlined in the Tanakh. And down here, this guy, he has a very little Zayin, and he also has a really big Vav. You know, throughout the Bible, Hebrew Bible, there are some letters that are smaller, and there are some letters that are bigger. If you open up the Torah, the first word of the Torah is Bereshit. The Beit is bigger than the rest of the. A lot of times in books you see that, right? You open it and it has once upon a time, the big U for one, or how do you spell once? The big O. Yes, I taught math, not spelling. Okay. But you understand, it's not uncommon for the first letter to be bigger or something, but to have a big letter somewhere in the middle of the word, or a bunch of smaller, extra small letters. There's a couple of times There's one time where there's a, is it a noon? Or it's a vav. It's a broken vav, where the vav, it starts down, and then there's a gap, and then it finishes. That's an odd letter in the Torah. There's two reverse noons that are, two noons that are written backwards. Who would write a noon backwards, and why is it like that? You know, we should do a talk sometime on all the different letters that are the odd letters that are in the book. But this one has one, and there's not many. There might be 40 or 50 odd letters in the whole Bible. But this one page has 1, 2, 3 small and 1 big letter. That's a lot, a big concentration in one page. Next. Oh, we were all squinting. We didn't have to. So there's the tav that's smaller, the shin that's smaller, and the zayin that's smaller, and there's the vav. Unfortunately, the font messed up, but you understand it's a vav. Okay, next. Now, let's look at the big vav. The big vav represents 6, right? It's 6 letter. It's gematria 6. So we'll talk about 6 as the 6th millennium. From the year nothing to the year 1000, that's the first millennium. And then from the year 1000 to 2000, here's from 0 to here, that's the first millennium. From 1000 to 2000 is the second. From 2000 to 3000, third. 3 to 4 is the fourth. 4 to 5 is the fifth. 5 to 6 is the 6,000. We are now, the 6th millennium is going to be, yes, we're almost at the end of the 6th, but it's going to be, there were 4,000 years prior to Jesus, then there was 1,000 years after Jesus, that's the 5,000, and now this is the 6,000. It's going to be in the it's going to begin, I don't know how to describe this. The 6th millennium is going to be the 5th 1,000 years.
So from 5,001 to 6,000.
Yes.
That's the way to think about it.
Yeah, from year 5,000 to year 5001 to 6,000, that's the 6th millennium. So it's first digit. You know why I couldn't describe it right now? Because I was trying to get 1973 or 19. I was going to our calendar. We're using the Jewish calendar. Sorry. So if it's the 6th millennium, the date is going to be the year 5,000 and something, right? If you take the small letters in there, you have a tav is 400, shin is 300, and this is 7, so that's 707. So if these are clues to a year, it would be the year 5,707. Make sense? Anyone not get that? Tav. These are the, remember it had 3 small letters and it had 1 big letter. The big letter was a vav and the 3 small letters were these. So maybe that was some kind of a hint to the year. And it's the Hebrew year 5,707, which on our calendar right now, what year are we in now? 5778. I think it's 5778 as of Rosh Hashanah 2 weeks ago or so. But on the Gregorian calendar, this equates to 1946. Well, why would God call attention to 1946 back in the Esther story? Well, let's watch. Next. Okay. On 21 Tishri, the year 5707, that happened to be October 16th, 1946. And it was the last day of Sukkot. That's odd, interesting, huh? There was a guy named Julius Streicher. He was a Nazi corroborator. He actually was a journalist, and he spread all kind of really bad stuff about the Jews. He started writing in the early 20s, and Hitler, he got all these people riled up against the Jews, and Hitler got him and used him to write bad propaganda against Jews. Evil, evil stuff, that they were the cause of everything. And his articles appeared in newspapers and magazines in Germany throughout the 20s and 30s. And he was hanged with 9 other German officers found guilty at the Nuremberg trials. Okay? Next. Go to the next one before we come. Next. Yeah, we're going to read this first. Okay. On that day, the number of those who killed in the citadel was reported to the king. Remember, there were 500 killed, plus the 10 sons. The king said to Queen Esther, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman at the citadel in Susa. The king just told Esther, we killed 500 men and Haman's 10 sons. Esther, my dear, sweet. What then have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is your petition, Esther, my dear, my sweet? It shall even be granted to you, and what is your further request? It shall also be done. So the king just told his bride, we've killed 500 people and the 10 sons of Haman. Now what can I give you? What do you want? And what does she say? Then Esther said, if it pleases the king, let tomorrow also be granted to the Jews who are in Susa to do according to the edict of today, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows. If I was the king, I'd say, did you not hear what I just told you? She's asking for the 10 sons to be hanged, but the previous verse, they're already dead. He just told her in the previous verse. Are you stupid, wife? Do you understand? There's something different here, something odd going on. Okay. Let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows. Okay. Go to the next one. See what that is. So the king commanded it should be done, and an edict was issued in Susa, and Haman's 10 sons were hanged. Well, that's odd because they were just hanged a couple verses ago. Weird, huh? Okay, now let's jump back a few slides. One more right there. Okay, so you know Germany lost the war. They had the Nuremberg trials, and they're putting all these Nazi bigwigs on trial. And 11 of them were sentenced to death. One of them was Julius Streicher, the writer. Another one was Field Marshal Hermann Goering. You know, Hermann Goering. He was the he was the airline guy. That's what I said. Okay. So 11 of them were sentenced to die by hanging, and they were going to hang them on October 16th, 1946, 11 of them. And in the morning when they went to get them, Goering had a cyanide pill somewhere, and he had taken it at night and killed himself. So now they're not going to hang 11, they're only going to hang 10. Wow, isn't that interesting? I'm getting goosebumps. Next. This was part of Streicher's sentence. The judge said, for his 25 years of speaking, writing, and preaching hatred of the Jews, Streicher was widely known as Jew Baiter #1. In his speeches and articles, week after week, month after month, he infected the German mind with the virus of anti-Semitism and incited the German people to active persecution. Streicher's incitement to murder and extermination at the time when the Jews in the East were being killed under the most horrible conditions clearly constitutes persecution on political and racial grounds in connection with war crimes as defined by the Charter and constitutes a crime against humanity. This is part of his sentence that they read. And they were going to hang him. Next. Goering took the cyanide and only left 10 to be hanged. And on that October 16th, 1946, which was that date of those very small and big letters in the 10 sons of Haman. So whenever he says, we've killed 500 and the 10 sons of Haman, now, my dear, what would you like? And she said, I want Haman's 10 sons to hang on the gallows. She wasn't talking about what happened that he just told her. This is a prophetic thing. She's looking in the future of these 10 sons of Haman. Who were the sons of Haman? Who was Haman? The guy who wants to destroy all the Jews. Who were the Nazis? The people who wanted to destroy all the Jews. And there were 10 of them, and they all hanged in 1946, which is what the number shows up in that big Vav and the 3 little letters. Isn't that cool? It could be something else, but that fits pretty tight. That's pretty good. Yeah, and there's no biblical Hebrew word for coincidence.
Could Herman Goering, could his name actually be pronounced Haman?
Don't know. I don't.
Because in Germany, Herr, spelled H-E-R-R,
Yeah,
which means man.
could be. I know a little German. He's called the Midget of Munich. I know a little German. You get it?
But and that's and his 10 sons, which would make 11, right?
Right, but Goering wasn't in it. He died before they got hanged. So
Yeah, all right. So 11 actually died.
yeah. 11 weren't hanged. Only 10 were hanged. And that's what she asked for. Next. Here's the last one. King Herod. This is a short one. We'll get. Boo. Next. Now after Jesus was born, in the days of Herod the king, Magi from the east arrived. How did they know to arrive? We know. We saw a star in the east. Then the king said to the wise men who understood, this is just reminding you who these wise men were. Next. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Gathering together all the chief priests and scribes, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. And we know where the Messiah was to be born because of Micah 5:2. You, Bethlehem Ephratah, little among the clans of Judah, from you one will go forth from me to be ruler in Israel. His going forth, you watching on TV? Look at this. His goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity. The Messiah is going to be God. His days are from long ago, from the days of eternity. And he's going to be born in Bethlehem, house of bread. Yeshua is the bread of life. It fits. Next. They said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what has been written by the prophet. And there it is, written by the prophet. Then Herod secretly called the Magi and determined from them the exact time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem. Go search carefully for the child. When you have found him, report to me so that I may come and worship him. So Herod pretends to be a devout worshiper. Antichrist is going to pretend to be a devout whatever until he declares himself God. Okay? Next. After hearing the king, they went their way, and the star which they had seen in the east went on before them until it came and stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And coming to the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They fell to the ground and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they presented to him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We've already talked about the three gifts. You give the king gold. You give a priest frankincense. You give a prophet myrrh. Yeshua was prophet, priest, and king. That's why those three gifts were given. Next. Yeah. Oh, we got a new guy over there. And one more. The Magi were warned in a dream not to return to Herod. And when they had gone, behold, an angel appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child, and flee to Egypt. Remain there till I tell you." Herod is going to search the child to destroy him. Yep. And when they were there for a while, he remained there until the death of Herod. This is to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. What was spoken by the prophet? That out of Egypt I called my son. So Jesus was in Egypt, and he was called out of Egypt, as the Messiah has to be called out of Egypt. And Yeshua then was called out of Egypt. Next. When Herod saw that he had been tricked, he became enraged, and he sent and slew all the male children who were born in Bethlehem and its vicinity. It wasn't just the kids in Bethlehem, it was Bethlehem and the vicinity. From 2 years old and under, according to the time which had been determined from the Magi, which was determined by Daniel, his vision. So Herod reveals his true evil self. Won't Antichrist do the same thing? He's going to start one way, and he's going to end up a different. Next. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to earth, he persecuted the woman, Israel. Okay, next. 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 When Herod died, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph and said, "Take the child and his mother." And Joseph took the child and his mother and came. So God foiled Herod, and God is going to foil Antichrist. Okay, there's a parallel there. By the way, remember where this all started? It started with Amalek. He was like Esau's grandson, an illegitimate grandson. Because Esau had a couple wives, but he had one concubine, and she had Amalek. And Amalek was like, he was fighting the Jews. Okay? And then you read along, and you come to Agag. Agag was from the line of Amalek. And Agag led to Haman. Right? And Haman, his descendant, is Herod. That we have this beautiful line that leads to Messiah from Adam and through Seth and from Noah and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. It's the beautiful, pure line that leads to Messiah. But at the same time, there's this evil, rotten line. Remember the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent back in the Proto-Evangelium, Genesis 3:15. There's going to be these two seeds that are going to be kind of butting heads all this time. Okay? And by the way, King Herod was, what do they call him? An Idiomaean? Is that what he was? It comes from Edom, which is from Esau. Okay? He was an Idiomaean. And so he is from that same, King Herod was from that same bad line. You have these two lines that are running. Who was the one, just Yasser Arafat? Yasser Arafat was Idiomaean. I wouldn't be surprised that he was also of this Agag. It says that this Amalek is going to be like this always to the Jews. But remember, then he said, I want you to what does he, blot out or forget? Yeah, remember to forget their name. Or he kind of forget how they worded it. But put Amalek, his remembrance, forget about the remembering him. Or something like that. Forever. So Amalek is finally going to be put away forever and ever and ever. But until then, it's this constant battle between the evil side and the Jews. Okay? And Antichrist is going to be that final guy who's going to be the last headbutting, I think. Okay? Okay, anything else here? Is there another one? God will foil Antichrist. Here's the foiling of Antichrist. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. So God foils Antichrist. Another? We're getting close to the end here. Yeah, next. I think this actually goes into something else, but okay. What time is it? What time do we start? Are we good?
Ask you a question, John. What is the difference in the spelling of Hebrew spelling of Amalek and Melech?
Oh.
And that's a very odd to me that he would just have the name Amalek.
Yeah, see, Amalek begins with an ayin. Ayin is I, or knowledge. And then is it a mem, lamed, kuf? I think it is. Amalek has 4 letters. So it's an ayin, an I, or knowledge, and then the word melech, king. I wonder what the tie-in would be. Amalek, we know, is the eternal enemy of the Jews, and his name is Ayin Melech. Whatever Ayin is, king. I don't know if it's like false king. I wonder if Ayin, which means I, or knowledge, and then the word king. The knowledge could be. Yeah. The king of knowledge versus, yeah.
Actually, that's the tree they ate from in the garden.
Yes, he's the knowledge king. If you're the knowledge king, that means you ate from the tree of knowledge, and you're now going after the knowledge king. That's the best answer we got so far.
And what happens to the ones who eat of that tree? They surely die.
Yes. So, okay. Well, there's my Antichrist talk after 3 days. How was that?
All right.
Okay, now tomorrow's the last night for me, guys. And I was thinking, whenever I'm not here, what am I doing? Well, I'm home sitting in my bedroom putting these talks together for next year. Or I'm traveling around the world. And some of you have heard, and I buy the cheapest ticket I can find, but I go all over. Last month I was in Fiji, Jakarta, New Zealand speaking. This is just last month. And in May, I was in Russia and India and Iran. I wasn't speaking in Iran. But you know what? I load up my suitcase. I only take a backpack, and I take a couple pair of shorts, a couple T-shirts, and I load up the backpack with Bibles in whatever language I'm going to. And some places you just can't be taking Bibles. I'll give you one example, and then tomorrow I'll give you a bunch of these stories. And so you get a feel if you like this or you don't like this, and you know whether to come or not. But they should come no matter what, right? My friend and I were flying to Tanzania. It's in Africa. We're going to do safari stuff. I had to scratch off Zanzibar. And I had a free ticket opportunity, cashing in some miles, from Istanbul to Zanzibar, and the plane changed in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Now, there were other flights that didn't change in Saudi Arabia, but if the plane's going to stop in Saudi Arabia for 5 hours, and I don't have to get a visa, I can say I've been to Saudi Arabia and just hang out in the airport for 5 hours. I'm down, you know? Yeah, I've been there. Because I don't want to go otherwise and hang out and spend time or give them money or anything. And it was weird hours, like from you landed at 1 in the morning and you were there until 6 in the morning. Yeah, they were ugly hours. But that's okay. I get to say I've been to Saudi Arabia. And if I'm going to Saudi Arabia, well, then I need to bring Bibles in Arabic. So I had my friend, another friend, order them online. I don't buy stuff online, but they do. And he orders me Arabic Bibles, Russian Bibles, Bengali. Wherever I'm going, I get Bibles in their language. And I put a couple in my backpack. So we land in Saudi, and there's lots of people coming and going. It's amazing, Saudi Arabia. They have 747 jumbo jets coming and going all the time, and they're filled with, what, 400 or 500 people? And the 400 or 500 people who are getting on and off these planes are all from India, Indonesia, Philippines. You know what they are? Workers. The Saudis don't lift a finger to do anything. They pay, probably badly, all these other poor people, and they're bringing them in, and you work your 6-month shift, and then you get to go home for a week or two. I don't know, though, but that's what's happening, you understand? And they're just constantly bringing in plane loads of workers, and then plane loads are going home. And it's really odd to be in Saudi Arabia and seeing all these Filipinos or all these Indonesians. And then my friend Raul and I, Raul and me, whatever. Okay, so there wasn't much in there. The prices in the duty-free are outrageous, and the restaurant was closed. But they had a restaurant, and it was almost like this. Imagine this is the main aisle of the airport, the main thoroughfare, and you see how this is kind of dark back here? And there's no door, there's no wall. It was just open, and this was a restaurant. And you could go into the restaurant. They had tables and chairs, but it was closed because it was 4 o'clock in the morning. But they were so I went way back in the corner, and I said, let's just sit back here, Raul. It was a little bit darker than this. There wasn't a soul in the restaurant because it was closed. It's 4 in the morning. And so we sat there, and it was probably an hour and a half, and they're calling, okay, the flight to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. That's where we flew next, and then from there to Tanzania. They're calling, final call, Addis Ababa. And I said, okay, Raul, let's go. And during that hour, we were sitting back in that dark restaurant. I was taking things out of my backpack, and I was reorganizing, repacking. It was more of a show than anything, because I wanted to make, if anyone was watching, I wanted them to think, okay, he's just repacking and doing whatever he's doing. But while I was doing all that, I pulled out the Arabic Bible and quietly put it on the seat next to me. We were at a table of 4, and then pushed that in and packed everything up. Oh, it's our time to go. And our gate was literally 20 seconds away. You walk out of the restaurant, and there was the gate. Like, if here's the restaurant, the gate would have been here, right? So we go to the gate, get on a bus. The bus takes you out to the plane. We're sitting on the plane, waiting to take off. And we're waiting, and we're waiting. And I'm thinking, everybody's on board. I mean, everybody's on board because they load up the bus with all the passengers, and the bus goes out to the plane, and then you walk up the steps. So, okay, there's no more bus coming. There's one bus that brings everybody out here. We're waiting, and all of a sudden, I see this car coming out with its lights flashing, like police. Now remember, we left that table, 20 seconds, we're at the door, we give them the ticket, we're the last ones on the bus, we go get on the plane. And we wait, and now there's this light coming. And it comes right to the bottom of the stairs and it stops. I'm looking out the window watching, and some guys get out, up the stairs they go, and I hear him talking to the flight attendant, and he's showing her this little piece of paper here. And so the guy comes walking down the aisle, and he stops at 21D, my seat, and he holds his little paper and says, 21D, is this yours? And it was the Arabic Bible that I had snuck onto that chair in a dark, closed restaurant at 4 in the morning. Saudi Arabia does not want any Bibles there. What? That's how in the world, who's watching a dark restaurant? And it wasn't like I went out and pulled out this Bible and, it was as smooth like me. That wasn't funny.
It wasn't so smooth either.
So those are the kind of tales we can tell of just some of my experiences of trying to get Bibles out. And then I have some success stories also. And I think it's just fun to know what kind of things are out there in the world. And some are just, they're like sponges. They want to know more. And some are so anti anything that it's hard to get a Bible in there. Yes.
What did they do? What did the police do?
It was illegal. And when he said, is this yours? And I said, oh my goodness, yes, where did you find this? Like I must have misplaced it, or so I played it off like that, and he gave it to me, and he got off the plane, they closed the door, and we left. Oh yeah, and then I put it in the seat pocket of the plane and put the in-flight magazine over it so that the flight back from Addis Ababa to Saudi might have a Saudi guy sitting in it, and God's going to make sure it gets to where it needs to get. And
I think I saw a Saudi car
yeah. That was actually my second trip to Saudi. My friend wanted to scratch it off, and that's why I said, well, we'll go through Jeddah, and I'll hang out 5 hours in the airport. It's fun to do it just because how often are you in Saudi Arabia? I've been twice, and it's an experience both times. Anyway, God bless for watching and coming. May God have the glory and the honor and the praise for putting all this together, because He's the one who puts it all together. And just God bless. Thank you.
Check 1 2. Hey, John, you got me? Turn me up a little bit. Stay close, John, for just a second. Oh, you've already dropped your. Got a little story I want to share with you real quick. We're gonna receive an offering, okay? And Matthew, if you just go ahead and just slowly make your way around. Give them a pitiful look as you do that. We want to take care of John and be supportive. John John had a story he told me. He hadn't shared it, and I don't think he would share it here. But it kind of applies to this. This has an effect on me because, I spent a lot of my life way away from the Lord and any kind of a relationship with Him, and most of that time I was as addicted to rock music as a person can be to any drug. And I don't like to admit this, but at one time I let our power get turned off to buy tickets to a Kiss concert. So that'd give you an idea how addicted I was. Just a stupid little kid. But I had a favorite band. And it was funny because John was telling me some of his stories, and I said, "You're a rock star, aren't you?" Because he always gets bumped to first class. Every flight he gets on, he don't even pay for them hardly, and he gets bumped to first class. They pay him to fly. He said, "Oh, I'm not a rock star, but I met a rock star." And I said, "Yeah, sure." Yeah. He no, really, I got bumped. He starts telling me this story. I got bumped to first class, and I'm sitting here, and I'm sitting right across the aisle from this big, tall guy with right there. Maybe you need to tell the story. Oh, you know what I'm telling. So the guy's got long blonde hair, and he's dressed in leather, and so John strikes up a conversation with him, and he tells John what he does. He said, I'm a rock musician." He said, "Perhaps you've heard of me, and perhaps you've heard of my band." Well, the band was Styx. Now, see, that probably don't mean anything to you, but Styx was always one of my favorite bands, and one of the reasons they were my favorite band was because their harmonies are unbelievable. They're just the best harmonies. And harmony's my thing. That's what I love to do. I love to harmonize. Harmony is my thing. And this particular guy, he's like 6'2", 6'3", but he sings high harmonies, like the little guy in the Kingdom Heirs, the little guy with the high voice. But he sings this perfect harmony, and you listen and you're like, how can this guy be singing this part? But this band is just, they were. But anyway, he said Styx, and John said, no, never heard of you. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? And he said, well, maybe you've heard one of our songs. We had some popular songs. He said, start singing, "Come sail away, come sail away." Is there anybody here who hasn't heard "Come Sail Away"? Oh, you've heard "Come Sail Away," son. You don't even realize how many times you don't know how many times you've heard "Come Sail Away." Lady, when you're huge hits. So anyway, I told him I have heard "Sail Away." "Come Sail Away." He started singing it. You guys don't understand. This was not just a band. This was a mega band. Okay. Mid 70s, 80s. But the funny thing is, they're still today touring, and they're still very successful. Anyway, he gives John a personalized guitar pick, which John brought to me. Now, here's why this is important, guys. My priorities in life have changed, and those things. This is not important to me like it would have once been, okay? But yet, it is real important to me because these guys had a big part in my life before, and I have had a burden for them for so many years because I'm like, these guys need to know Yeshua. They need to know Yeshua. I don't want to see these guys. I'd like to be singing along this guy in heaven someday, I don't want him to be in hell. James Young, I want you to know something. I've got your guitar pick, and I carry it in my wallet, John had the opportunity to share some scripture with him, teach him a little Hebrew stuff. But I want you to know I have something personal of yours, and I use it. I'm praying for you. I want you to know that. I'm praying for your salvation. And I've got a personal item. I've got a stake. So I want you to know this stays with me, and I'm going to be praying for you. It's going to remind me to pray for you. I want you to know that. Don't know that you'll ever watch this video, but somebody might that knows you. So I just want you to know. And I want to thank you, John. This is really special to me. I want you to know that. So thank you for doing that. Guys, thank y'all for coming. 6:30, tomorrow night. We'll start eating at 6:30. I want you to know, didn't you said the video for was 3 hours and something?
If you do, chapter 1 is 1 hour, and then chapters 2 and 3 are 2.5 hours.
Okay, so what we will do, we've got 2 more nights actually of feast after he leaves. That's Tuesday and Wednesday night. We'll split that video so we're not here real late, okay? And we'll watch half of it one night and half the rest. I'm telling you, it's possibly the best teaching I've ever heard. Yeah, we'll try to start the actual video right around 7, maybe 7:10, and no later than that, and we'll get some more of this teaching, okay? Love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for your hard work.
You don't know the Jewish wedding. You have to understand the Jewish wedding to understand Revelation. It's the big culmination of this big love story in the Bible. So it's amazing. It's really good. So try not to miss if you can. It's really good.
Well, you could be here too. Yeah. Anyway, blessings, guys. Good night. Shalom.